Do you desire to turn your passion into income? Connect with other creative souls who also dance to the beat of their own drum? I'm Marie-Nicole, and I'm devoted to combining beauty, uniqueness, and connection in everyday living experiences. As a creative professional and Dharma coach, I help people connect to the truth of who they are and facilitate them in embodying their uniqueness. It is my hope in this podcast that I inspire you to live your life on your terms and earn your income through being uniquely you. After all, it's the unique thread that we each contribute to the collective tapestry that creates the whole. In my last episode, I stated that I rarely, if ever, get sick, and associated that with the development of mind-body intelligence and the connection there. Now, I'm not saying I have all the answers to health and well-being and that I have never in the past experienced being sick. I certainly have had a lot of experience with that, which has led me on a journey from a very young age of trying to understand what fosters health and well-being. Just like when we buy a particular car and we receive guidance on whether or not to put petrol, diesel or gas into the vehicle based on the type of engine of that vehicle, we too have variations on our human vehicles, and it serves us to understand what makes ours different. I was born into a human vehicle made up of a gene pool that was blended with European and African traits. My parents were born in a tropical climate, and I was born in Melbourne, Victoria, here in Australia, so not exactly tropical. And then in my teens, we moved to Brisbane, Queensland, a climate more like that of my parents' homeland, but my body did not cope very well with the humid climate. I suffered from sinus when we moved up there, and yet the rest of my family was relieved from their hay fever. I was the only one in the family who did not suffer from hay fever in Victoria. So this move to a tropical location meant a whole new learning curve for me on how to maintain physical health. Choosing to wear natural fibres to keep my body temperature regulated certainly helped. Going between artificial air-conditioned environments to the elements outside, especially humidity, did not. So I developed this belief that I just was not made for the tropical climate. It wasn't until recently, in the last maybe 7 years, that I really connected with what my body needed in order to stay cool. From the inside, starting with foods that I ate, learning about Ayurveda and my Pitta constitution, which made so much sense when it came to the inflammation I experienced when eating certain foods. Not that I follow a diet based on these principles strictly, because there are foods missing from that were based on the fact that the foods didn't even exist in the country that it was developed. But these teachings have certainly been really helpful in helping me make sense and evolve in my experience of taking care of my human vehicle. And it was interesting to note that someone with a different constitution to me benefited from consuming the foods that were not recommended for my constitution. It took me years to take notice of what my body was telling me when it came to things as simple as what to eat and what not to eat for breakfast. This may sound like a simple and silly thing to say, but my former husband loved porridge, and while I enjoyed it, I always found that I was really hungry within an hour of eating it and felt that I needed to eat something else. So I started to opt out of eating porridge and would make a savoury breakfast instead. Toasted sourdough with pesto and avocado and a boiled egg on the side, for example. Doing this certainly made me notice that I did not get hungry until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was able to concentrate better on my work. And this was even before learning about Ayurveda. I have friends who can go without eating breakfast altogether, but for me it's an essential part of my morning routine, which has developed into waking up, doing yoga, followed by journaling while sipping tea and getting ready for the day, and then having breakfast. So by the time I sit down and have breakfast, I've been up for nearly 2 to 3 hours. So it's not like I roll out of bed and go straight into eating a meal. Now, many years of trying and testing what works for my human vehicle led me to this morning routine, which serves my body and my mind. The same can be said for what suits me in terms of the environments I work in. Naturally lit environments with fresh air definitely support me much better than working in an air-conditioned office with artificial lighting. And we all have our own unique human vehicle. And since we are the ones experiencing the results of our choices and the impacts of our environments, the thoughts we focus on, etc., it's up to us to tune into what is supportive and what is not, and making adjustments accordingly. What works for me may not work for you, so I can't tell you what you need to do to get the best out of your human vehicle, but you can certainly tune in to your own and assess what's serving and what's not. Now, on that note, receiving guidance on what could serve you in terms of the vehicle or vehicles you use to drive traffic to your business offerings is something I can assist you with as a digital guide in the Digital Solutions program. But again, it's going to be unique to you and your business. But if you are in New South Wales or the ACT Australia and you have an ABN and you run a for-profit micro or small business, even if you're just starting out, for a small fee of $45 plus GST, when you select the All Access option, you receive up to 4 hours of coaching, one-to-one, focusing specifically on your needs in the digital space. Signing up to the program with my affiliate link and choosing the All Access option, you also support the production of this podcast, as I will receive a small fee for bringing you into the program. And this is a great way to get a taste of how coaching can help elevate your business activities and help you tune into what you actually need specifically to succeed, to reach your objectives and to meet your goals. To register for the Digital Solutions program, simply click on the links provided in the show notes. Now back to today's topic of understanding your human vehicle. We've all heard the phrase that your body is your temple, which resonates with me as it speaks to the fact that what we eat, what we think, what we believe, treating our bodies as a sacred space in the same way that we do a temple, is what sets the tone and texture for our life experiences. Learning to listen to the messages our body's delivering us, to understand what serves and what doesn't, especially since our bodies are uniquely designed. Just like learning about Ayurveda, being introduced to human design, taking the time to understand my unique energy system has certainly been beneficial. While I don't subscribe to all of the teachings of human design, I have certainly benefited from understanding that as a manifesting generator, I need to keep my vehicle moving to burn off built up energy, which I've always felt. I've always known that I need to move. But only from the fact that I felt better when I felt physically and mentally better whenever I moved my body. But then actually learning that that is how my body is designed to operate, and that if I sit for too long, I develop aches and pains and also feel lethargic. Then, if I was a projector, another human design type, then I could probably spend hours sitting stationary and not suffer from that. And actually, I have friends who are just like that. Because they don't have a self-sourcing energy system, pushing themselves too much can actually work against them. For them, it's best to stop in the middle of the day and replenish and re-energize their battery, rather than just keep going and push themselves. And even eating, they eat differently. They don't need to eat as frequently as what I do. I need the nutrients that creates the fuel in my energy system to give me what I need to keep moving. And I also need to get the rest that I require to recharge. But I can go for a lot longer without stopping because I have my own energy source. So let's consider for a moment a mechanical vehicle and how when we buy it, we not only know what type of fuel it takes, but we also know what type of oil it takes, or we need to know what type of oil it takes. Our human vehicles are no different. It was so heartbreaking for me to witness family members go on various diets and lose weight, or either experience big fluctuations in weight or loss or gain, but never seem to be able to sustain a healthy weight that enabled them to move through their days with vitality. My genetic makeup is actually made of quite a variety of illness, like life-threatening illnesses, obesity, anorexia, mental health issues. So I have, from a very young age, understood the importance of understanding self and learning to take care of ourselves in a way that's supportive for us and not rely just on medication and diets to tell us what we need from the outside, but learning to work from the inside and really understanding what is affecting our weight and what is affecting our vitality. Now, when I say I started this from a young age, when I went to university in my early 20s and was studying visual arts and design, I took an elective in fitness because I wanted to learn how not to struggle with the fluctuations in weight myself. And a part of that subject was to train for a 10-kilometre run, which was part of our final assessment. Now, running has never felt good to me. While I can walk all day and I enjoy a sprint, long distance running really doesn't suit me at all. And I ended up with the most excruciating pain in the form of shin splints while training for this 10K run. And the treatment of that was even more painful. Now, I've given birth to 2 children without painkillers, naturally, and I can tell you that at the time I hadn't experienced childbirth yet, but those shin splints were probably the closest to what I would call to childbirth pain. So the lecturer agreed to me riding instead of running the 10 kilometres after weeks of experiencing this excruciating pain and treatment. And I've never attempted to run long distance again since. However, I have endeavoured to overcome my struggle with humidity. Life is one long journey of discovering how to best operate our human vehicle. And unlike the mechanical vehicle that we purchase, we don't come with a manual of do's and don'ts and troubleshooting recommendations. Or do we? That is where our genetic makeup is the foundation of our structure. But how we treat it and what we do to maintain it or destroy it is actually what determines our outcomes. So for me personally, time in wild nature has always been a way that I have found to reset myself if I'm feeling off kilter. And it's easy for me to bring myself back into balance simply by spending time barefoot on the earth, leaning up against a tree, walking in amongst wild nature, listening to the rhythms of nature, the natural rhythms. So anytime I need a change of scene, you'll see me beeline straight for wild nature. And also seeking effortless connection with other humans. Like, I love people. I love being around people. I also like time to myself, but I do actually really value connection with other people. And at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time working from home and remotely. And one of the ways that I've maintained regular connection with people is through the Dream Arc Retreat, which is held by the Gene Keys. And the thing I love about the Dream Arc Retreat, it is based around working with animals and shamanic practices, and it's really tuning into creativity and intuition. I also did the Pearl Sequence Retreat earlier in the year, which is a Gene Keys offering, and I loved that, but it was a lot more of the mind based. And so coming back into this creative, intuitive Dream Arc Retreat was a beautiful flow on from that. Now, the other night we had a community call, and in the breakout room we were encouraged to share stories of how we were choosing our next quest as you go on these virtual quests, which also take you out into your environment and in-person experiences in nature with animals. But we started in an online space. So we were discussing our next quest and what we were planning to go into. And I said, I get the feeling I'm heading into a leaper's quest. But I also thought, I've just been through this massive change, which I feel like is not completely over yet. But I'm about to quantum leap into that next thing, that next iteration of self that I'm here to experience. But I wasn't quite sure. I also said, I feel like, potentially I still might have more changes to work through. Anyhow, I was telling the story of a dream that I'd had, which gave me this experience of what it would be like to have a complete start over in terms of identity. And that was quite a shocking experience for me in that dream. The other thing we were sharing was the animals we were working with and our guardian animal. And my guardian animal was a snake. But I felt like I was being called to work with a kangaroo as well. But while we were working through the guardian section, I was feeling like it was, we're here in the Guardians, I'm working with a snake, I really shouldn't be focusing on the kangaroo. But there were lots of interactions that were bringing me towards working with the kangaroo. And I'd never really looked at the kangaroo as in the codex and looked into what its meanings were. But the next morning there was another community call at 5 a.m, which I had planned to join again. And I woke up and my body was telling me not to get onto the call, but to just rest. I had this ache inside of my solar plexus chakra area, which I was feeling quite unwell. And I'm thinking, here I am, very rarely getting sick. And I actually just felt this ache in my solar plexus. And then I was thinking about the solar plexus and how the color of it is yellow, and well, I'm wearing yellow today as a part of that healing process from whatever it was that needed to be shifted in my solar plexus at the time. So I opened up the snake profile in the codex, the animal codex, and was reading that, and then remembered that in the night before's community call, I said to my group, I think that I'm going to use the snake to guide me into what to do next. I will let the snake tell me which category I should go into. And so I opened up the dream arc and I clicked on the snake, and it propelled me into the leapers category. And the funny part about that is the color of the leapers is yellow. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm feeling this pain in my solar plexus area. Yellow is associated with that. I wasn't sure if I should go into the leapers or if I should stick to the changes. And I was being propelled into something that I thought I may not be ready for, which was a part of my dream. And then I decided to use the Leapers Oracle to tell me which animal to work with. And the animal that came up was the kangaroo. And I just laughed. And I just thought, wow, this is amazing. It still amazes me, the synchronicities that take place when we tune into our mind-body intelligence. And so something I'd like to invite you into is, well, first of all, tuning into your mind-body connection. But also, if you'd like to join me in doing that, I am working to launch an online gathering which will enable us to discuss these topics that I've mentioned and dive a little deeper into understanding how to work with our mind-body intelligence and natural systems like the moon cycles and our personal energy system to create a life that supports us and our human vehicle, health and well-being, and to be able to have that conversation with people that are not going to think you're crazy because you're diving into something that's just a little bit more alternative. So I'm planning to offer this as a part of a membership offering, which will be a small monthly fee, and it'll give you the option to turn up to these weekly gatherings where we kick off the week with tools and practices that can be supportive to us throughout the week so that we can thrive and step into that highest expression of self, whatever it looks like for each of us individually in our personal journeys. Now, there'll be more information about this through my monthly newsletter, which I have expressed is running late. I will be sending that out soon. I actually wanted to finalize the details of how this membership offering will work before I put that newsletter out. But if you want to subscribe to the newsletter, there's a link for that in the show notes or Linktree. Now, I was also just notified of a glitch in the welcome email, which you usually receive once you join the flock, and I will be fixing that very soon. But with all the changes that I have been going through over the last 2.5 years, and not only becoming a single mum, but also a solopreneur once again, no longer having a team that I work with. So it is just team me, Marie-Nicole. And I laugh about that because I often say Marie is my feminine side and Nicole my more masculine, and how it's important for us to balance our feminine and masculine in operating a business. That is so important. And as solopreneurs, even more so. Now, so many of you listening to this episode are probably solo operators. And I just want to say that it's okay, and you don't need to feel ashamed if you don't have a team behind you. We all need to start somewhere. And most of the entrepreneurs with teams supporting them also started as solopreneurs. So I like to keep in mind the quote that says, start where you are, use what you've got, do what you can. It is, after all, the fact that when we continue to show up and do what we can, that leads us to the outcomes we desire and reaching our goals and objectives. And if working towards having a team is a part of that, starting on your own, there's no shame in that. Balancing our feminine and masculine energy is so important as solopreneurs, and I have always loved working with others, combining skills, and know that I thrive in partnership. But I also enjoy alone time, and I believe this transition that I've been going through in the last 2.5 years is actually life inviting me to connect back to balancing my feminine and masculine energy, so that when I do enter into another sacred union, I will do so from a position of independence, developing an interdependent relationship rather than a codependent one. And I think the same for business. It is really important for us to be able to self-motivate and manage what we need to do in order to develop that team that we can then drive to offer to the collective a greater service. Now, our modern day lifestyle has actually detached us from practicing understanding what serves our human vehicle. With the focus being more on the mental understanding of things, we've detached from tuning into our intuition. Fortunately, though, we are now in an era where we get to combine the two, the intellectual and the intuitive. In episode 50, I spoke about embodiment and how it starts with self-awareness. I believe the same can be said for understanding our human vehicle. It starts with tuning into and exploring for ourselves what serves us and what doesn't. Relying purely on facts provided to us from outside sources takes away our power from understanding our own unique makeup. Taking care of ourselves is the foundation of doing what we are here to do in this world. Now, last week I spent more time than is beneficial to my body sitting down, and I could feel that I needed to move. And so instead of ignoring that, I took action immediately. I created a makeshift standing desk, and after a couple of days of standing to work, even running my coaching sessions that way, I felt 10 times better. And then I did not have to spend the weekend recovering from the fact that I neglected the action that I needed to take, that my body was clearly telling me I needed. Hustle culture, however, go hard or go home, has not served us as a majority. It has actually worked against most humans to race to the end and end up suffering by pushing themselves through to burnout in an attempt to reach their goals, often discovering that it doesn't serve people personally to do so. Understanding what works for you and taking care of your human vehicle will not only benefit you, but also your teammates, your colleagues, your loved ones. The ripple effect is significant. Understanding what works for you allows you to plan your business activities around what serves your human vehicle too. And if you feel yourself plummet in the middle of the workday, instead of having a coffee or some other form of pick-me-up, maybe take a break, find a spot outside to lie down under a tree and let your system reset. When you do get sick, it's often your body's way of letting you know where you're out of balance and what needs your attention. And it's the opportunity to make adjustments. There is so much more I could say on all of this. We can do that either through the coaching services I offer or joining me in one of these weekly meetups that I'm planning to hold online through the membership. So if that interests you, be sure to sign up for the newsletter. And if you have any issues with your sign up, you can always reach out and let me know. But in the meantime, I want to encourage you to at least tune in to what the messages are that your body is delivering to you personally based on your unique needs, your unique human vehicle. And I look forward to seeing you here again next week. Thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is, and I hope you got value out of listening to this podcast. If you are looking for a coach to support and guide you through your own unique journey of creating a life you love, then reach out for a connection call. And if you'd like to connect with other creative souls in person by joining us at a workshop, a retreat, or to book a unique shopping experience here at Creators Nest, I run those by appointment. So check out the website for more details. The link is in the show notes. Oh, and please leave a review. I'd love to hear any insights or inspirations that were activated in you from this podcast. And I look forward to drumming, dancing, or soaring alongside of you.